Welcome to Threads of Truth, a podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today we're examining one of Britain's most divisive murder cases, where a farmhouse shooting, disputed forensic evidence, and decades of appeals continue to raise difficult questions about certainty and justice.
It really is. It's a completely mind-bending case the more you look at it.
It is. Welcome to the conversation, everyone. We are so glad you are here with us.
Yeah.
And, I just have to express this absolute sense of awe I have about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, just how a case from 1985, we were talking about an analog world, right? No cell phones, no modern DNA. How a case that old can still generate these explosive, brand new forensic reports today. It's wild.
It is wild. But I think it makes sense when you consider what a crime scene actually is.
What do you mean?
Well, we tend to think of crime scenes as these, fixed realities, like frozen moment in time.
Right, like a photograph.
Exactly. But our ability to look at that frozen moment, and crucially, the motives of the people looking at it, those things constantly shift. What's so fascinating here is how the dead leave clues, but the living decide what those clues mean.
Oof. That is an eerie way to put it, but you're totally right.
Yeah.
The living decide what the clues mean, and that is basically our mission for today.
Right.
We are going to explore the White House farm murders. And specifically, we're talking about Jeremy Bamber.
Yes.
A man who has served 41 years in a maximum security prison for the murder of 5 members of his own family.
41 years. It's a staggering amount of time.
It really is. But despite that conviction, there is this relentless innocence campaign. And there are these newly unearthed police logs that just completely challenge the entire narrative.
They threatened to pull the whole foundation right out from under the official story.
Exactly. So as we walk through this, I want you, the listener, to keep one central question in the back of your mind. Can forensic evidence ever truly settle a public debate? Or, does it just give us more shadows to chase?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. Because the deeper you look into this one, the more shadows there are. So, let's start at the beginning. We need to walk through the horrific events of August 7th, 1985.
Right. Let's set the scene.
So we're in Tolsant, Darcy, which is in Essex. White House Farm, the large isolated farmhouse.
Very isolated, surrounded by fields.
Yeah, and inside, the police make just an unimaginable discovery. 5 victims.
5?
Neville and June Bamber, who were the wealthy farmers who owned the estate. Their adopted daughter, 28-year-old Sheila Caffell.
And, tragically, Sheila's 6-year-old twin sons, Daniel and Nicholas.
Just awful.
Yeah.
And all of them, all 5, were shot with a .22 caliber Anschutz .525 rifle.
Right. And it's important to understand the weapon here, just briefly, because the mechanics of the gun become the whole case later on.
Okay, unpack that for me. What is this specific rifle?
So an Anschutz .525 is a semi-automatic sporting rifle. It's really common on farms.
Like for pest control?
Exactly. Rabbits, foxes, that sort of thing. But because it's semi-automatic, it means you don't have to manually pull back a bolt after every shot.
Oh, so you just keep pulling the trigger.
Right. The energy of the cartridge automatically ejects the empty casing and loads the next round. You just pull, pull, pull. And while a .22 is a small bullet, at close range, it is devastatingly lethal.
Wow. Okay, so when the police first get there and find this horrifying scene, they don't actually see a mystery, do they?
No, not at all. They see a very tragic but seemingly straightforward murder-suicide.
Driven by Sheila.
Exactly. The initial police theory was entirely focused on Sheila Caffell as the perpetrator.
And, looking at it from the perspective of a 1985 detective, you can kind of see why they jumped to that conclusion.
You really can. Her background unfortunately provided a very convenient narrative.
Yeah. Sheila was a 28-year-old former model. And she had a very well-documented, severe history of mental health struggles.
She did. She had recently been hospitalized, actually.
Right, with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder.
Mm.
And she had this looming fear that she was going to lose custody of her boys to foster care.
Which is a terrifying prospect for any mother, but especially someone actively battling severe mental illness.
So the police walk in and they find her body.
Mm-hmm.
And the physical scene seemed to just confirm their bias.
It really did. She was found on the floor of the master bedroom with the rifle resting right on her chest.
Muzzle pointing up toward her neck.
Right. And she had 2 gunshot wounds, one under the chin, one in the neck, and there was a bloodied Bible right by her side.
Okay, wait, I have to stop you. You said 2 gunshot wounds.
Yes.
Under the chin and the neck. How does someone shoot themselves in the head twice? Doesn't the first shot just instantly incapacitate you?
It's a really common question and honestly a common misconception. From a forensic pathology standpoint, it's actually entirely possible. Yeah. It happens more frequently than people think in suicide cases because a .22 bullet is so small. Unless that first shot hits the brainstem or completely destroys the central nervous system, it might cause terrible bleeding and pain, but it doesn't just instantly shut off motor functions.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Yeah. The first shot under her chin was non-fatal. It just passed through her soft tissue. The second shot was the fatal one. So the pathologists on the scene in 1985, they looked at that and said, yes, physically, this could still be a suicide.
Okay, so they had this locked-in theory. But how did they even know to go to the farmhouse in the first place?
That is the absolute core of the controversy, the timeline.
Right. Because Jeremy Bamber is the one who originally alerted them.
Yes. Jeremy lived a few miles away in a village called Goldhanger, and he called the local police in the middle of the night.
Claiming he got a call from his dad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He claimed Neville called him in a panic, saying Sheila had, quote, gone berserk with a gun, and then the line just went dead.
So Jeremy calls the police, and they head out to the farm.
Right. Armed response vehicles are sent out, and Jeremy meets them outside the farmhouse.
Which leads to this absolutely massive, incredibly tense standoff.
Oh, a 4-hour standoff.
4 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, to put yourself in that situation. It's the middle of the night, dozens of armed officers.
Yeah.
And they're just standing outside this dark, silent house.
Using loud hailers, bullhorns, shouting at the windows.
Trying to get anyone to come out.
Yeah.
And they get zero response.
Nothing. Complete silence. Until finally, at 7:35 a.m., they decide they have to breach.
Right. So they break down the door, they find the bodies, and for an entire month, the police operate strictly on the theory that Sheila did this.
100%. They release the scene, cleanup begins.
Mm-hmm.
The media reports it as a tragic family annihilation by a mentally ill mother.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Because if everyone was so convinced for a whole month, how on earth do we go from a tragic murder-suicide to a son framing his sister?
It's a massive pivot.
It is. It's like a magic trick where the misdirection just suddenly falls away. What caused the narrative to flip so drastically?
It all comes down to one person, Julie Mugford.
His girlfriend at the time.
Right. She was Jeremy's girlfriend. And about 4 weeks after the murders, their relationship completely implodes. They have a very volatile, bitter breakup.
And immediately after they break up, she goes straight to the police.
She walks right into the station and completely changes her initial statement.
She claims Jeremy had been bragging about wanting to kill his family, right?
Yes. For over a year, apparently. She said he hated working on the farm, he felt underpaid, and most importantly, he wanted the inheritance.
And we were talking about a massive inheritance here.
Huge. Around 436,000 pounds in 1985.
Which is millions today.
Easily. Plus the value of the land itself.
So she paints this picture of total greed.
She does. But we have to talk about the context of her statement because it's a huge point of contention.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't just coming forward purely out of the goodness of her heart, was she?
No, not exactly. She had some serious financial and legal incentives.
Yeah, let's talk about the tabloid deal.
Yeah.
Because this blew my mind when we were researching the sources.
Right. Julie Mugford had secured a deal with the News of the World. They offered her 25,000 pounds for her story.
25 grand in the 80s.
It was a fortune. But here's the kicker. That payout was entirely contingent upon Jeremy being convicted.
Wow.
If he's found innocent, she gets nothing.
That is an unbelievable incentive to make sure your ex goes to prison.
And it gets worse. She was also facing her own criminal charges at the time.
Right. Burglary, checkbook fraud, selling cannabis.
Exactly. And the police and the prosecution essentially agreed to drop all of those charges against her in exchange for her testimony.
So she avoids prison and she gets a massive payout as long as Jeremy is convicted.
That's the Innocence Campaign's argument, that she was an incredibly compromised witness.
But, the police couldn't just arrest him on her word alone. They needed physical evidence to back up this new theory.
Which brings us to the most controversial piece of physical evidence in the entire case.
The silencer.
Yes, the sound moderator.
This thing is the absolute core of the debate, so let's establish what this is. It's a cylindrical steel tube.
Right, about 6 or 7 inches long.
And you screw it onto the end of the rifle barrel to muffle the sound of the gunshot.
Right. But the discovery of the silencer is, frankly, bizarre.
Bizarre is the perfect word for it, because the police didn't find it.
No, they didn't. Think about that. Dozens of trained officers searched that farmhouse top to bottom on the day of the murders. They didn't see it.
But 3 days later, someone else finds it.
Yes. Jeremy's extended relatives, the Beltflower family, and Ann Eaton.
The very people who stood to inherit the entire estate if Jeremy went to prison.
Because of the legal principle of forfeiture, if Jeremy is a convicted murderer, he can't inherit. The money goes to them.
So the relatives go into the house 3 days later. They look in a downstairs gun cupboard, and they claim they just found the silencer sitting there.
And not just sitting there. They claim there was a tiny flake of dried blood inside it.
Okay, let's just pause and think about the logic of the prosecution's theory for a second.
It's a leap.
A huge leap. If Jeremy is this cold-blooded mastermind, right? He executes his family, violently wrestles his very athletic father, shoots his sister to frame her.
Right.
And he does all this so perfectly that he fools the police for a month.
Yeah.
Why on earth would he take the bloody silencer off the murder weapon and just neatly put it away in a cupboard for his relatives to find?
Behaviorally, it makes zero sense. It completely ruins his own staged scene.
Exactly. But the prosecution didn't care because of the geometric argument it allowed them to make.
Right. The physical dimensions of the silencer were everything to the prosecution.
Let's explain this to the listener, because this is what won the trial in 1986.
At the trial at Chelmsford Crown Court, the prosecution presented a very simple, very powerful visual to the jury.
It's all about wingspan, right?
Exactly. The Anschutz rifle is already quite long. If you add a 7-inch silencer to the end of it, the overall length is extended significantly.
So much so that if Sheila was holding it,
her arms literally wouldn't be long enough. She physically could not point the muzzle at her own neck and still reach her finger all the way down to pull the trigger.
Wow. So they're telling the jury, look, it's just math.
Yeah.
It's physically impossible for her to have done this with the silencer attached.
Right. And they added that she couldn't possibly shoot herself, unscrew the silencer, walk downstairs bleeding, put it in a cupboard, and then walk back upstairs to shoot herself the second fatal time.
Which, yeah, that is impossible.
It is. And that argument, combined with Julie Mugford's testimony about his greed, was enough.
The jury convicted him.
10-2 majority verdict.
And he was given a whole life tariff. Which, for anyone outside the UK, means he is never getting out. No parole, natural life in prison.
And his appeals over the last few decades to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, the CCRC, have been constantly rejected.
So that's the official narrative.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about how the public and independent investigators have reacted to this over the last 4 decades.
Because the Innocence Campaign has a wildly different interpretation of every single piece of evidence we just talked about.
Right. The prosecution sees pure greed and a staged scene.
While the Innocence Campaign sees police tunnel vision, contaminated scenes, and witness credibility issues that are just off the charts.
But, you know, I always try to look at these things skeptically. If Jeremy didn't do it, we have to believe in this extraordinary cascade of police incompetence, plus malice from his relatives. Is that actually plausible?
It sounds like a movie plot, I know. But when you look at the mechanics of the evidence, specifically that silencer again, the official story gets very shaky.
Let's go back to the trial. Because the judge told the jury something about that blood in the silencer that was just deeply problematic.
Yes. Justice Maurice Drake, during his final instructions, the jury actually stopped and asked him a direct question.
They wanted to know about the blood.
They asked, is the blood inside the silencer a perfect match for Sheila Caffell?
And the judge said yes.
He did. He told them it was a perfect match.
Which is terrifying because it wasn't true.
Not at all. We have to remember, this is 1985. We don't have billion-to-one DNA profiling yet.
Right, they were using blood groups.
Exactly, ABO grouping. And the blood group found inside that silencer belonged to 8% of the British population.
8%. That's millions of people.
It's the opposite of a perfect match. And the truly eerie part, the part the jury never heard,
Oh, this gives me chills.
that 8% included Robert Bellflower.
The uncle. The guy who magically found the silencer in the cupboard.
Yes. The relative who inherited the estate and who regularly used those exact guns on the farm. His blood group was a perfect match for what was in the silencer.
That is insane. If the jury had known that, there's no way they convict on that evidence.
And it gets even more chaotic. In 2011, documents were disclosed showing Essex police might have completely mixed up their exhibits.
Wait, what do you mean mixed up?
The police logs describe multiple different silencers. One log says the silencer is 6.5 inches long. Another log says 7 inches.
Oh, yes.
One log describes a knurled metal pattern. Another says straight cut grooves.
Are you saying they literally had two different silencers and just combined the paperwork?
The defense firmly believes the police conflated a clean silencer found by officers on day 1 with the bloodstained one found by the relatives on day 3. And they just presented one merged murder weapon to the court.
That is, wow. Administrative chaos doesn't even cover it.
It completely breaks the chain of custody.
And the contamination issues aren't just limited to the silencer. Let's bring in Herbert Leon McDonald.
Yes, the blood spatter expert.
And this guy is a heavyweight. He worked on the assassinations of RFK and Martin Luther King Jr. He reviewed previously undisclosed photos from the crime scene.
And he wasn't looking at the emotion of it, just the strict physics of the blood flow and the positioning across a timeline of photos.
And he found unexplained movement.
He did. He proved that Sheila's body and the rifle resting on her had physically moved between different photographs taken by the police.
So the scene the jury was shown as this pristine, untouched reality
Was actually manipulated. Whether it was cops carelessly checking for a pulse and putting the gun back wrong or actively staging it to look more like a suicide, the result is the same. The visual record was unreliable.
which just feeds the internet obsession with this case. I mean, you look on Reddit or watch any of the TV dramas about this, and people are utterly obsessed.
Because of what I call the true crime uncertainty principle.
What's that?
Well, the human brain desperately wants closure, right? We want absolute scientific resolution. But in this case, the state literally stole that resolution from the public.
Oh, right, 1996, the destruction of the evidence.
Exactly. Essex police, in direct breach of their own guidelines, destroyed original trial exhibits, including the blood samples from the silencer.
While Jeremy is sitting in prison actively appealing his case.
Yep. They incinerated the core physical evidence. They claimed it was degrading or posing a health hazard.
So now we can't ever go back and just run a modern DNA test and solve it once and for all.
You can't. The science was destroyed. And when you create a vacuum like that, endless speculation just rushes in to fill it.
But, even though the blood is gone, the modern forensic review of the photographs is still pretty devastating to the conviction.
Oh, absolutely. The work done by Dr. Jason Payne James and Dr. David Fowler is groundbreaking here.
So Dr. Fowler is an American pathologist, right?
Yes, former chief medical examiner for Maryland. And he didn't need the blood. He just needed to look at the physics of the gunshot wounds on Sheila's body.
Okay, remind me why that matters so much.
Because the whole case against Jeremy hinges on the idea that the silencer was attached to the gun.
Right, because if the silencer is attached, she can't reach the trigger. If it's not attached, she can.
Exactly. So another expert, Philip Boyce, a ballistics specialist, actually fired an Anschutz rifle with and without a silencer into synthetic tissue to see what kind of mark it leaves.
Right, because firing a gun point blank isn't just about the bullet. It's about the blast.
The expanding muzzle gases.
Okay, I want to use an analogy here that really helped me understand this. Think about a garden hose.
Okay.
If you let the water flow freely from the open nozzle, it just hits the ground in a straight, concentrated stream.
Right.
But if you screw on an attachment that traps that pressure and you press it against the ground, the pressure forces the water to spray backward and outward in a wide circle.
That is a brilliant analogy. That's exactly what happens with the gas.
Okay.
Boyce proved that firing the rifle with the silencer attached, pressed against the skin, forces the expanding gases laterally.
And it leaves a massive burn mark.
A very distinct, massive halo pattern around the wound. You cannot fire that gun with the silencer attached to human skin without leaving that burn.
Well, when Dr. Fowler and the other experts looked at Sheila's autopsy photos,
There was no halo.
none at all.
Her wounds were completely clean contact wounds, perfectly consistent with the bare muzzle of the rifle and entirely inconsistent with a silencer being used.
Which means 5 independent forensic experts now conclude the silencer was never on the gun when she died.
And if it wasn't on the gun, the prosecution's entire narrative completely collapses. She could have reached the trigger.
So she could have been the shooter.
Physically, yes.
Which brings us to the most chilling part of this whole case, the hidden police logs.
The C1 forms, this is where the timeline just shatters.
Okay, so for decades, we were told there was only one call to the police that night. Jeremy calling from his cottage at 3:36 a.m.
But when investigators recently got access to the raw, handwritten communication logs from the dispatchers, they found 2 calls.
2 calls, logged 10 minutes apart. Let's walk through this carefully. Call number 1.
Call number 1 is logged at precisely 3:26 a.m.
Okay.
The origin is recorded as White House Farm. The phone number listed is the farm's landline.
And who does the log say is calling?
It says the caller is Neville Bamber. And the notes say his daughter, who he specifically notes is 26 years old, has gone berserk and has a gun.
Okay, so that's at 3:26 a.m. Neville is calling.
10 minutes later, there's a second separate log,
Call number 2.
logged at 3:36 a.m. The origin is Goldhanger, Jeremy's cottage,
And the caller.
Jeremy Bamber, stating his father just called them and his sister, who he notes is 27, has gone crazy.
Wait, so they're 2 different ages, 2 different locations, recorded on 2 different coded copy forms.
Yes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, if Neville actually made that 3:26 a.m. call, identifying Sheila as the shooter,
Then Jeremy Bamber has been telling the absolute truth for 41 years.
he physically couldn't have committed the murders.
No. Think about the geography. Jeremy could not be at the farm at 3:26 a.m. making a fake call impersonating his dad during a mass murder.
And then somehow transport himself miles away to his cottage
Dispose of his bloody clothes, clean himself up entirely.
and make a second call at 3:36 a.m. 10 minutes is barely enough time just to drive the distance, let alone clean up a massacre.
It is logistically impossible.
Plus, didn't one of the officers let something slip at trial?
PC West. He took Jeremy's call. Under cross-examination, he admitted that police cars had already been dispatched before he even spoke to Jeremy.
Why would police be racing to the farm before Jeremy even called?
Exactly. Because Neville had already called them at 3:26.
Wow. So, with all this new evidence, the forensics, the halo burn, the dual logs, why is Jeremy Bamber still locked up?
It comes down to the CCRC, the Criminal Cases Review Commission.
The UK's institutional safety net.
Right. But over the years, they have shown a massive institutional resistance to admitting the system got it wrong.
Dame Vera Baird's recent critique of them was brutal.
It was. She basically said their culture has devolved into actively looking for reasons not to refer cases. They treat the original 1986 conviction as sacred text.
So when the defense brought them Dr. Fowler's silencer report,
They rejected it, based on pure semantics. They clung to 40-year-old testimony about what quote-unquote firm contact meant in 1985 and completely ignored the modern physics of gas expansion.
why should the listener care about this bureaucratic mess? Well, because it really exposes the lack of a Brady rule in the UK.
That is a crucial difference. In the U.S., the Brady Rule forces prosecutors to hand over any exculpatory evidence.
Anything that proves innocence. If they hide it, the case is thrown out.
But in the U.K., historically, police and prosecutors have had huge power to just act as gatekeepers. They decide what's relevant.
So they can just bury a police log if it ruins their case.
Exactly like the 3:26 a.m. log, the jury never saw it.
And the really twisted part of the UK system is how it treats you once you're convicted. If you sit in front of a parole board after 20 years and say, hey, I am innocent.
They view you as in denial.
Right, you're labeled unremitting, lacking empathy, and a danger to society. Maintaining your innocence actually keeps you locked up longer than if you just fake remorse and admit guilt.
And Jeremy Bamber has refused to admit guilt for 41 years.
So what are we actually left with here? We have to separate the verified facts from the speculation.
Right, and the verified facts are highly troubling. Mixed blood profiles in the silencer, the dual police logs, and modern experts agreeing the silencer wasn't used.
But the ultimate answer is just out of reach because The physical evidence was incinerated.
We are staring into a scientific void. Was this a massive conspiracy driven by family greed? Or just unimaginably bad 1980s policing that the system refuses to correct?
Both are terrifying. Both mean a man's life was thrown away based on evidence that has completely crumbled. It just makes you reflect on the terrifying fragility of certainty. Two groups of people can look at the exact same steel tube, the exact same blood spatter, the exact same phone logs, and see two entirely different realities.
It's unsettling.
It really is. The absolute truth might just be permanently buried under 41 years of legal maneuvering. Next time, we travel to a quiet holiday cottage in West Cork, Ireland, where a French filmmaker was found murdered outside her remote home, leaving behind a mystery that still divides investigators, journalists, and an entire community.